Welcome back to Upsetting TV. I'm Gemma Houghton, and today I'm with Lisa Myers, who's the founder of Verve Search, and we're going to talk about international content marketing. So, hi Lisa, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, international content outreach is a big part of what you do at Verve Search, and you've achieved some pretty good success getting great coverage in some really well-known publications. Mm-hmm. First question I want to ask you is really, how do you start planning for a campaign like that? Do you have those publications in mind when you start thinking about the content, or do you actually just come up with some great content and then look about where you might be able to get that published?
Well, it depends on the client. Sometimes it can start with a goal of wanting a particular publication.
Yeah.
But most of the time, 9 out of 10, it's more around the ideas. So it starts with ideation, thinking about what ideas would be suited for the type of client. There are obviously creative campaigns that are very successful and very, very good for any kind of clients. Yeah. Like, I always think that using data in campaigns and being able to visualize data in a good way, no matter what kind of market or industry you're in, it really increases the chances of getting more coverage, because data is a great way of getting different angles. Yeah. But sometimes it is a goal of getting particularly bigger publications, like, for example, BBC or The Guardian, or any of the big newspapers, or the international lifestyle ones like Mashable, Forbes, and so on. And that might be part of it, but it's not the crucial thing. The crucial thing is in the ideas.
Yeah, and coming up with something that they're going to like, or that an audience is going to like.
And that it suits the kind of content that naturally belongs with that client.
Yeah.
So it has to, like, I think
it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it really, really has to feel like that content belongs with that client.
Yeah, not that it's being created on their behalf, just loosely, tangibly created.
And that doesn't mean that it has to be about product. In fact, I really strongly believe that for creative campaigns to work and to get great coverage, it should never be product related.
Yeah, definitely not.
Because that limits it a lot.
And what about when you're actually coming up with the ideas? Because that's probably one of the most difficult parts, to think about something and come up with something that really is going to capture imagination of people and be unique. Where do you start with that idea process?
Well, I really think that creativity is about mindset. And I think anyone can be creative and anyone can come up with great ideas. But I think it is very different from person to person. Like, we have people in our agency that loves brainstorming, and that's how they come up with ideas. Yeah. Like myself, I need to talk to be able to think, and so for me, brainstorming is a way that I think of ideas and concepts. While other people, again, they like to research and they need to do things on their own. So what I would say for anyone wanting to do creative campaigns is, do not try to fit one box. Yeah. Work with the people you have. Creativity is about people and allowing people to really allow themselves to think. And when they allow themselves to think and their thoughts to wander, that's where ideas come. That's where they're born.
And like you say, when they're able to do that in the way that most suits them and without feeling pressure to do it in a certain way or by a certain time. Yeah,
I really think that that's one of the most crucial things of developing creativity, is accepting that everyone has different ways of doing it, and there's no right way of doing it. And then it's harnessing those ideas and kind of getting them together. Like when we do kind of conceptual kind of ideation stage with new clients or existing clients, I think it's more pressure when we do existing clients, because usually that end up to be at the end of the year, beginning of the year, and we have there's a lot of ideas that needs to be thought of. But the great thing is that when we put it all together, I think it's really important that we then use each other to almost critique ideas
and refine them.
And refine them. And that is always better together. That's when it might be that the idea started off as one thing here from one person, but as we work together, it becomes, that's when
people really can add in different elements to it, and that's when it grows into something really good.
Yeah.
And then you've got to that point and you create the content, which could be in, various different forms, depending on what you and maybe the client is looking to do. But then how do you decide, right, we're going to try and this is great, we think it would work in this publication, for example, or it would fit with this kind of audience. How do you then determine exactly who the right person there is to get in touch with, and how do you make that contact?
Okay, that's actually the easy bit. In fact, if you don't mind, I would like to just rewind slightly to the bit before, because there is a bit that's even more important than that, because that's just the how, which is actually really simple.
Yeah.
But the why they will be interested is more important.
Yeah.
And that's usually where the angles come in. So let's say that we've thought of a data piece that's related to that. We've done something recently for Sage, which is about a unicorn company. So companies are worth over 1 billion. And we gathered loads of data that already existed on the web. And I think this is a great thing about creative campaigns as well. You do not need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff is already there. So using tools to, like Basumo, for example, to find content that's already there can be really useful. So we created a campaign that was getting loads of different information about this the unicorn founders and where they've gone to university, all these different interesting kind of facts about them. Now, the great thing about that, and the next stage after you created this in a design point of design and development, which is also very important, it has to be good enough to look like it's come from a creative agency. I think that's important. But then it's about the angles. What angles suit what type of sites? So for that one, and it's weirdly quite often not the angles that you think will be the interesting one that ends up being the one that takes off. For that one, the most popular angle was, where did these unicorn founders go to university? That's the one that has completely blown up in terms of amount of coverage. And that's when you then find you have the angle, then you find the person. Because now you have the angle, like I have this graph, this is where all the unicorn founders went to university, Stanford was number one. Then you think, okay, what publications would that be interesting? Obviously, one, Stanford University, number one. Then you Forbes, then you have Business Insider, and then you find the people that might have written about that before, or are specifically writing about startups or fast-growing companies and so on. And that's very much about research. The easy bit is just writing the email, because the writing the email is literally writing an email. And again, this is a process where I really believe that people should be allowed to be individual and do it differently. There's no such thing as a perfect outreach email. The perfect outreach email is the one that is you as a person. So
connecting
I have
with
people
them as a person.
Exactly. But also for you as a person. Like, I have people that write like literally essays, and I would I do not do well with like long emails. But that is how they work. While others write really short ones. There is no correlation really in what is better than other. But it has to be what they
how they can get their ideas across, or their opinion across.
And then getting those angles, the very important angles, suggesting, well, this could be a piece of content about this or that angle. That is then how you get the hook in, really.
And how do you said that, for example, that one was the angle that really took off, but how did you know that was going to be the one that would be interested?
We didn't. And that's the thing, is that that is kind of like an organic.
You just have to kind of go with it and
you have to. And so you try usually 2-3 that you think is interesting. And then you see which one picks up, and then if one starts picking up more than another, you then maybe try to do that on a bigger scale and contact more people. But that doesn't mean that you won't go for the other angle. So we've kind of really gone out on that's one angle now, and now we can go to other angles. But you have to kind of go in and out of it and live with it, with the process, really.
Not be too fixed from the start, because it's
never
going to probably work out the way you expect it to.
Exactly.
And then if you do achieve to get, coverage in a big publication, or, it doesn't even have to be the biggest, but, you get good coverage. Obviously, you benefit from a link. Obviously, you benefit from people reading that. But how can you then maximise the fact you've had that exposure to really make the most of the campaign?
Well, a lot of the time, this is one of the reasons that we only really focus on the larger sites. Because the great thing about the larger sites is if you get more than just the link, as in they will also share on social, or like, in fact, we've had a lot of coverage lately that's been in the print paper, which obviously as SEOs, we're kind of like, great, but it doesn't count for anything for us. But interestingly, it does count for a lot, because you never know where the secondary kind of wave of coverage will come from. Especially with social, a lot of, especially if you like sites like Mashable and Business Insider, they have huge social following. And once they share it, you almost always get secondary pickup. So that is super useful. So any piece of content that has also got a chance of getting social shares, like at least a few hundred, can really benefit the kind of impact from an SEO point of view, because it will get a secondary link.
And there must be, there'll be people watching thinking, but I could never be able to do that. Or when we've tried it before, we've never even managed to really get much coverage. Is it just a case of you've just got to keep trying and you've just got to keep going, and eventually, something might click and something will get there?
I really think that we're not doing anything secret. There's no secret sauce to this. It is perseverance. And you can't give up doing things like this, because especially with outreach, like there's at least like 20, 30 no's for every yes, if not more, sometimes more, a lot more. So it's very much about not giving up and believing in it. And I do think that sometimes something doesn't work because it wasn't the right time. I really think that if you let yourself believe that you can't do it because one time it didn't work, it is a big shame, because even the same campaign at a different time can and writing to different people can change the outcome. So outreach and creative kind of content marketing or link development is very much about mindset.
And not giving up.
And
then if you're looking at it from an international point of view, obviously it becomes more complicated. How do you approach that if you're working with global clients? Can you replicate a campaign for different markets, or is it often a case you need to do something a bit different?
I think it's absolutely possible to replicate in different markets. There's obviously different kind of industries where that's easier. But I don't think anything is impossible. I think I don't believe in these boxes or these limitations we give on ourselves to say that, in B2B we can't do creative, or like that isn't true. That's that's fear, really. And I think the really amazing thing about doing international, so we work like currently in 7 different markets, and the really great thing about doing outreach and this kind of thing in several markets is that it kind of forces you to be more creative, because you will meet different limitations in different markets, and each limitation teaches you a different way of looking at it. And the more ways you look at it, the better you will get at it. So you really have to think that every time that you meet a wall, that this is going to teach you how to climb over it. And I think one of the biggest kind of learnings for myself in particularly working in kind of the European market, specifically in the Norwegian market. I'm Norwegian myself, and I thought that, Norwegian would be easy. Oh my God, the first year that we were working in the Norwegian market was so difficult, because they had different laws. They had actual limitations on laws that you weren't allowed to link out if it was even a smidgen kind of commercially. And at first we nearly gave in to the whole it's just impossible. And there was something in me like, there must be a way. And now I think that one of the most successful markets doing outreach is the Norwegian market, because what that taught us is that sometimes when you meet a dead end, you will find another way, a completely different way, and that way will teach you a lot. And for us, that was a collaboration with people. So in Norway, we started collaborating with Tourist Board, creating campaign with our client and the Tourist Board. and that opened up a whole different possibility.
Yeah.
And we got the coverage and links that we never thought we would get just months before.
Yeah.
So I think most importantly, doing international and doing any market, even if it's a totally new market, think of as this is your chance to learn something completely new. And even if it's really hard, it will teach you something amazing, and you're going to get better.
You can then try that in all the other markets as well. So.
Exactly.
That's one good example about, different laws and restrictions that make things different. Are there any other markets which have particularly different rules or regulations or kind of attitudes even from the users that make it need a different mindset?
Yeah, there is, I think, when creating content in any market that isn't English speaking, you really have to bear in mind that the cultural references can be different. And what you think people will care about might not always be what they care about.
Yeah.
I think what I've learned about the Nordic markets particularly is that the talking about themselves is actually quite like their own history and their own kind of culture is actually really successful.
Yeah.
Well, that probably wouldn't be as big in the UK. There are also, I would say, there are some markets that are more challenging in terms of maybe a little bit more behind in the way that we are doing outreach and campaigns, where they're kind of like, it's about the boxes again. It's kind of like, well, what are you? Why are you doing this? This is PR agency stuff. And I'm like, well, I don't care.
Why do you care who's giving it to you?
Yeah. And that's, I think, is more challenging for us, is when they are not agreeing with boxes.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating. But that's changing fast.
Yeah. Great. Well, it was lovely to talk to you, Lisa. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.